Ruben, how
Yeah.
are you?
Hi, Liam. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm great.
Great. I was just waiting for the audio to catch up, but it seems to have done that. Congratulations on your film.
Oh, thank you. Wait, are you Ruby Tuesday?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember. I remember your review of Beyond Skyline. Cool.
Yeah, that's what 3 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Amazing. You worked right up until like the deadline because the festival's like what in a few days.
Yes. I mean, don't tell anyone, but I'm working on the final movie right now. Like that, there's still some stuff that I'm tweaking. so, so what you see on Blu-ray will be slightly different. I think I found a cameraman shadow yesterday and a monitor cart in the background of two
Oh,
shots.
really?
So
Brilliant.
we're still cleaning stuff up. Yeah.
There's no coffee cup in the.
No, it's more like that doc the village, that village set would just be people like yeah, like smoking cigarettes like right out of shot,
Yeah, yeah,
like while we're filming, and so you're like, wait, god damn it, I can see someone smoking in the background there. So yeah, there's no Game of Thrones smoking gun, but also our lights, like on the end, in the end battle in the ship, we have like there's always lights blooming. So
yeah.
suddenly a cameraman will get caught with a light blooming behind him, and a shadow will appear on a wall and stuff like that. So
How many cameramen? What was the setup? Was it one camera or did you have multiple going?
no, we generally had two going, and we did a lot of Dolly in this movie. My DP is Alain Duplantier, and he's like an incredible Dolly shooter. Like, so I learned a lot on Dolly setups in this movie in general. And then we would kind of, I was pretty familiar with Steadicam from Beyond Skyline and sort of handheld. So there's a lot of kind of roving in between that when we're having sort of proper dialogue setups. It's a lot of Dolly, and then I kind of would do a lot of roving Steadicam masters, and then move in for close-ups
Yeah.
on the Dolly afterwards.
Uh, I presume that people that watch this chat of ours won't have seen the film just yet. So
Okay.
for those, what can people expect? What's the difference? What do you think is the main difference between two and three?
I'd say the biggest difference is just that it's another genre departure, and you kind of have to just prepare yourself for that at the beginning, and realize it's not going to be Beyond Skyline 2. We're kind of taking you all the way into the future. We open with the battle that ended Beyond Skyline, and then even from there, within the next 2 minutes, we're going 5 years into the future beyond that. So it's like strap in, kind of. There's a big sort of buy-in that you have to have in that first act, and that's kind of the world building of a future London, and then this kind of big space mission, this mission to the alien planet of Cobalt 1,
Yeah.
that everybody has to get to gear up and go on. And I feel like once you're in on that, then the movie takes care of itself. But I think that's kind of the thing that you have to prepare yourself, I'd say, going in on. And I think once the trailer drops, which I'm being told is this week, then I think people will kind of be fully grasped that they're going to have a good time. But it is definitely we're going in a new direction,
Yeah.
keeping things fresh.
Yeah. One thing that took me by surprise, but I really loved about this particular outing was the humor. So I wasn't expecting that, but there's the brother and the sister relationship, particularly from the fact that it's dubbed, well, subtitled is brilliant, because obviously we don't know the language. But then you have this banter that goes backwards and forth, and I think when it gets serious, it's awesome. But then you have that levity that comes in and just kind of like go, oh, okay, it's a sci-fi escapism, pure adventure, and this is what I'm expecting. I wondered how you came up with, I'm going to do that this time.
Yeah, I just think that was a little bit of growth and getting better at it. There was more levity in the Beyond Skyline script, but I don't think I had a good enough feel on how to balance it. So a lot of the more levity moments kind of got cut, to be honest with you. And then in this one, it was even just the very end of Beyond Skyline when she's walking down the hallway and kind of was razzing Trent, that I was like, that's it. That's the tone I want. You know, that was kind of what I was looking for the whole movie. But because Beyond Skyline, it's like it's a world invasion. It's such a heavy subject that's what's so hard to write about those movies, is that it's hard to like have a quiet scene and talk about past trauma when the world just ended today. You know, so those movies kind of keep so much like the event and the recent trauma of the event overshadows everything, that it's hard to kind of you know, do more variety of tones. So I think that's was great about being in a post-apocalyptic kind of future world, is that you could really dig in on character a lot more, especially in the early goings of the story, and that just kind of leaves itself open to having a little bit of levity. You know, it's not a comedy by any means, but it was just enough to kind of make it feel a little bit more grounded and real. And yes, I'm glad that you like those scenes, because that was sort of like once Lindsay and Jeremy Fitzgerald plays Trent, and he's the soup performer from Beyond Skyline and Skylines, and definitely a really important part, I'd say, of these last two films. So once I had that scene of them in the first act, and I saw how committed she was to really kind of, like, just when you look at her talking to him, like, you can tell that that's her brother, and that she really loves him, and she's frustrated with him, the same way we are with our siblings. I was like, okay, I have a movie now. I knew we'd be okay.
Yeah, I really felt like I believed they were brother and sister, and you had that banter. So I think that helps carry the adventure, which is great. But the film is heavy on the CG, as you would have to for a space adventure. I think in your second one, your film boasted to have like 1,500 visual effects. Is that right?
It was actually closer to like 17.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
yeah,
that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
How much in this one?
It was around 1,000 to start with, and you know, as you get in towards the end, and like you're saying, you're finding more stuff, I think it creeped up maybe just under 1,200.
Okay.
But it still definitely was a lot of hard work and discipline in prep to make sure that we didn't end up with the same amount of shots as Beyond. The kind of the main issue with Beyond was that we had this big silo chamber, you know, where Trent and Audrey woke up, and then Frank tried to rescue them from. And that chamber was just, I really wanted to build that set on stage, and it ended up just not quite being possible within our time constraints. So we had to do it green screen. And that really was like, because we had so much action in there, like even just dialogue shots with Trent and Audrey when they're just kind of talking to each other, that becomes a visual effects shot. So that really was the one lesson that, like, I knew I didn't want to repeat. And so then a lot of our sets in Skylines are like what I like to call diorama sets, where we would build about 3 walls. And so you could shoot most of the scene inside of a set, and then you would kind of do your reverse for like a big sort of epic shot where you'd have an expansive environment behind them. And then that obviously worked really well into the ending of this for our end, most complicated set piece of the movie.
Gosh, even though it is visual heavy, I really like the aspect of the practical costumes. Obviously you had built some of the sets. I think my favorite bit, and this is going to sound really bad, but my favorite bit is the credits, when you get to see a little bit of behind the scenes, because you kind of get an idea of how much went into it. So you're seeing the actors, you know, someone whacks somebody and like half the mask kind of goes off, and you're like, oh my gosh, how many times did you have to do that? So the balance must have been tricky for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit why I like to do those end credit scenes, is that even down to the DI, you can see how much work is done, you know, making every set look the way it is in post, and it kind of gives a tip of the cap to everybody who worked so hard on the movie.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh wow, yeah, this is what you're seeing, and then that was what the final product was. And it's also a bit of a curtain call, like my older brother was an actor, so I went to a lot of theater growing up, and I always loved the end because it's like, oh, like the scarecrow comes out and bows, and you get to clap for him. So there's a little bit of that for me on that too, and just kind of like, it's funny because you go back to the humor, is that like I felt like Beyond Skyline wasn't enough levity, and the end credits really kind of informed the tone of the movie in a little bit, because you were like, oh, they were having fun while they made this.
Yeah.
It wasn't the most
Yeah.
pretentious thing in the world. And then I think we got a little bit closer to that within the movie of this, so it's not so much of, it's not doing that sort of lifting, but it is just sort of a nice thing for the cast, and you get to kind of see, like you said, how much work goes into making these movies.
So every time I saw an actor pop up that I knew could do martial arts, was kind of just waiting for the moment. And there's a couple of, without doing spoilers, there's a couple of really grand scale, really well thought out, choreographed action sequences. One particular between a pretty tall actor and one particular a shorter actor, which I thought was incredible. How long did that take? And did you choreograph that, or who was your choreographer?
No. So I like how we're not spoiling that fight, because I do think it is a fun one. But I will say Daniel Bernhardt's part of that fight. He was kind of, obviously our ace in the hole as a martial arts actor, who's also just kind of perfect for Colonel Owens.
Yeah.
And he would like turn around on set, and it was just like it's like a video game avatar from like Halo or Doom, just like walked like right into the movie. He's just got such a perfect look. So he's obviously an incredibly experienced on-screen martial artist, and from back to the Bloodsport sequels, the Matrix sequels, John Wick. He dies in the first John Wick, but then he would just play different stuntmen in the other ones because he's such good friends with the director. So he's an incredibly experienced fighter and choreographer in his own right. And the action unit, action design team, Real Deal Stunts, have worked with him on a bunch of movies, from like Hobbs and Shaw, Atomic Blonde, Birds of Prey. So they have years of experience together to fall back on, and so they definitely choreographed that, and they shot that scene. That was a second unit shoot. That was one day. Wow. And the fight was even longer. We had to cut a middle section out of it in post, just because it was intercutting with our other story with Rose and Leon. But yeah, that's definitely was a real gift, to have all three of those guys kind of collaborating on something, and just like it's a little bit like of the Picasso thing, like it took me 30 seconds to paint this, but it was 30 years to learn how. So a lot of this movie, I think the separation of what we do, it's obviously a bigger budget than a lot of VOD action films, but it's a fraction of the budget of a blockbuster.
Yeah.
And where that kind of hurts you is the money and prep time. You don't get 3 months to train actors. So you have to kind of do your homework. You have to hire awesome stunt team, awesome action design team, and you have to hire actors that are physically very capable, and that are going to be able to pick this stuff up really quickly, which we just kind of lucked out on all fronts.
I got distinct feelings of Pitch Black, Independence Day, and Aliens. Like in my mind, that's like the three. What did you draw from, and were there inspirations? Were like, yeah, I really want to create a scene like that?
Yeah, I mean, Aliens, I think overall is definitely the main inspiration for the film, the main touchstone. Pitch Black, definitely. I think all of the Riddick movies, I love all three. So there's definitely uh, both, yeah, with some of the thoughts on the creatures, was Pitch Black. It was sort of Pitch Black meets Predator meets Attack the Block,
Yeah.
was the different references that we were trying to figure out with.
That special
And
effects that you've got on the creatures was incredible. Like I had no idea
yeah,
how you did it, but it
that
very
was a really tricky look, and it was sort of something that, we're always trying to kind of reuse our assets and make them in interesting ways, and so it was kind of trying to figure out these shadow creatures. And I think originally I was thinking something a little bit closer to Attack the Block,
mm,
but we realized, because one of the reasons that makes that look work so well in that movie is because the creatures are kind of furry, and our creatures are slicker
yeah,
and wetter. So it ended up kind of coming into a half blend of sort of a little bit of the Predator cloaking, a little bit of Pitch Black, a little bit of Attack the Block. You kind of, you take inspiration from wherever you can get it.
yeah.
But I actually think one of the more than definitely Independence Day or even Pitch Black, one of the films that I found when I rewatched it that I realized I was definitely drawing from, and I didn't realize really at the time, was Fellowship of the Ring. And
Okay.
it's because my son, who's 11, like those are his favorite movies, and it's like pretty much once a year we watch all six of the movies
Yeah.
together. And so when I was watching again, I was like, there's a lot of the Mines of Moria sequences
Yeah, I
in
see that.
Cobalt,
Yeah.
and definitely something that, like, once we were in post and I kind of that had clicked in, I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely something that I wanted to do there. That that movie was another one that sort of blew my brains out when I saw it in the theater. And so there's all those little parts that kind of seep into your DNA, and you draw from when you're making your own.
Every director I speak to, when I were talking about like they've just finished their film, there's always a day or a week that was like the week from hell where things went wrong. Was there a day for you that was just like, this was tough?
Oh, like in post, or just at any point in the
Or just
movie?
at any point, like when you're filming, like on day, like someone has re-recorded over your memory card. Now I've seen that done as well, which is the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first week was definitely the toughest. It was again like that the lack of prep time and kind of trying to figure out the tone with everybody. Um, the we did a camera test, and some of the outfits were just not right. Like Leon, Jonathan Howard was kind of cast at the last minute, and so it took about a week to just sort of recalibrate.
Right.
And there was an idea. Here's a really embarrassing idea. There was an idea for Rose that, like, once she kind of evolved in the second half of the movie, and she, you see there's a distinct look change, and I was like, well, what if her hair, because of this aging thing, that she had like white streaks in her hair. So I almost maybe a rogue type
Rogue.
thing from
Yeah.
X-Men. And it just the camera test is just terrible. It just didn't work at all. And
Right.
it was just like she looked like a caveman. And I credit Lindsay being like, I don't think this is like, I'm gonna keep it real. This is not like awesome. And I'm like, okay. So we actually like sat down and put together an entire like lookbook of what her hair story would be. And I ended up being, I'm really, really proud of her looks in general throughout the movie. I think she's a great evolution. I think that was sort of a good step for me, from making sort of like a boys movie in Beyond Skyline to then working with the female lead and really kind of trying to embrace my feminine side. And I really did give a shit about her hair.
Yeah.
I really, sitting with hair and makeup and being like, yeah, this is important stuff. It's not trivial, and it is going to make a huge difference, in the movie and in her character. And so, yeah, there was definitely some misses as far as wardrobe and hair and makeup that we quickly rectified. And I also got to shout out my costumer, Lena Mosum from Spain, who I didn't think her and I had like a very big difference of opinion because I'm kind of this indie filmmaker. I was just like, let's just use like motorcycle suits for the space suits and you augment them. Like, we don't have to build them from scratch. We don't have the money to do that. And she just was like, trust me, it is going to save us money and it's going to save you time if I do these from scratch. And I was kind of stubborn and didn't necessarily believe her. And it was another good education that like, hey, the people that do this department for a living like actually know what they're talking about, because even the way she built them, they had a lot of venting and cooling in them. And even with that, like, you know, the actors would get really exhausted and really overheated. And on those days, we had to slow down. So if we had done actual leather motorcycle suits, it would have been a total nightmare. So yeah, it was just another good kind of lesson that like you don't know everything and you should listen to the people that actually do.
Did you take any props home? Have you kept anything?
Of course. Yeah. I have the red Power Claw and I still have the original Power Claw.
Amazing.
Those are staying with me.
What are the possibilities we get a director's cut of this?
This is the director's cut.
This is okay.
Yeah, this is it. There's deleted scenes, but they're deleted for a reason. You know, there's an extra little plot line with Rose getting a sample of the pilot's blood and kind of trying to scan it on the ship. And it was some fun scenes. Hopefully I can include them on the Blu-ray, but I didn't think there was anything that was super important. You know, I'd love to do more of the fighting that we shot in the Cobalt Cavern, but it's so expensive to do every shot visual effects wise that there's not really any version of it that's much longer than what we had. I was very kind of, you know, meticulous and like I it can't be any longer than it is because every shot of the shadows is quite expensive and hard to do, and we have so much other movie to get through. So yeah, I don't think there's any like there's any real big regrets for the cut. I'm really
that's really good then, because that's the film you want to put out then.
Yeah, I mean, there is an interesting thing with the rating in this is that you know, to get the financing, I had to actually sign a paper that said it was going to be PG-13, but I still shot it sort of on the edge. And then they've said basically that it's fine to be unrated. So it's not quite as gory as I think I would have if they had just said go for the R to begin with. Right. But at the same time, I do think it kind of works for the genre that it's in. You know, it's not quite as a brutal movie as Beyond Skyline, and it kind of fits more the personality of the lead, I think. Whereas you know, Frank is a bruising kind of dude, and that movie kind of fits that apocalyptic vibe. And this one is a little bit more of an adventure story, so that we still have our moments and there's some really good gore and surprising kills, but it's not quite the same I'd say non-stop onslaught as Beyond.
Without doing spoilers, at the end there's a sequence which led me to believe that there could be a fourth. Is that something you still want to do, or have you had enough of this? You're like, okay, I can't even think about that at the moment.
Oh no, I definitely would want to do a fourth. It's you know, like each one has been so fresh and so different, and gotten to work with so many amazing cast and crew members around the world. I'd be a fool not to want to continue making them, and I think. Yeah, I think the ending does hint at such a fun idea that I mean, look, I already started writing it, so it's really up to the audience to make it happen. You know, if people want more, then we'll keep making them because you know they're just I don't think there's anyone else that's quite having as much fun as we are like making these type of movies. Like you get to do a little bit of everything, and I can already see where the next one would be a little bit where, like you said, I felt like we've kind of finally built to like the right balance of tone on almost every front, and so I'd like to continue kind of going in that direction and kind of keep exploring, you know, the larger universe that we've now kind of found ourselves in.
All right. Okay. I should say a friend of mine, John Brown from Express FM, says hello. Says if I,
Oh yeah,
he says,
I,
you guys,
he's been a good supporter. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. He was like, hey, mention my name. So I've mentioned. So I hope the screening of it in a few days' time goes really well. We
Me too.
loved it. So I felt like it was the perfect escapism film for now. Like with the world the way it is with COVID, it's like this is what I need. I just need to sit back and be entertained. Adventure at its like purest.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I mean, I would be, I definitely kind of have been thinking about that because it is kind of like, you do make the movie that you want to see in a
Mm,
lot of ways. And there would be times, during the post or during the summer where I was like, I want to watch a movie like this movie, but it just doesn't really, there's not a lot out like it. And,
yeah,
and people haven't been making movies quite exactly like this for a while. So yeah, I think especially for fans of those sort of classic sci-fi movies that we mentioned earlier, it's definitely like a nice sort of nostalgic but new experience,
yeah,
and definitely a welcome escape from 2020.
absolutely. Yeah. And before I go, because I think I've taken up my allotment of time.
I
Um,
think you're the last one, so whatever you need, you
oh,
let me
great,
know.
cool. If you had the chance to do anything, like any project, like a Marvel film, a Marvel character, a Bond film, what would spark your interest? What would you love to do?
I mean, all of the above would spike my interest. I mean, anything like that would be great. The only thing that would give me any pause about that is that I kind of get to, like, I even got to do a Bond villain monologue in this one. I get to do all the stuff that I want to do, and I get almost so much freedom that I don't think I'd ever get on a bigger movie.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I definitely do know how to play well with others, and would like to do something you know on a bigger scale. But I would still generally take the approach that I take to these and just scale them up. I wouldn't want to just completely abandon the formula that I think works so well on these, which is like to still make things incredibly efficiently and smartly, so that all of the money is really up on screen.
Yeah. Um,
I guess I didn't give you an answer, but like, yeah, I mean, like you name it. I mean, one, I'm American, so I'll never get hired for a Bond movie. But I would definitely love to do anything with Marvel, DC, um, obviously AVP universe. Predator, Aliens is
yeah.
definitely closest to my heart. Um, but even Pitch Black, like give me a call, Vin Diesel. Let's go. Like let's do a spin-off. I would love to play in that universe. I love the Riddick films. I think Riddick's an amazing character. So anything like that, I'd be game.
I think I'm one of the few people that really like the second film as well, especially the director's
Uh,
cut.
I love it.
I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
okay.
I don't like it. I love it. So you're not one of the few.
Okay.
I think that was one of those films that like unlikely films that inspire you, because I was like, they're switching the genre and they're so confident in what they're doing, and everyone else is like, what the fuck? But I was like, I got more of a high out of that than like many a critically acclaimed genre movies
Hmm.
that other people swear by, but that like aren't ambitious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I get a definite high off of ambition and sort of like verve and gusto, that I think that is sort of undervalued by execs and sort of the town, the business in general. They kind of undervalue that. They want everything to be like perfectly within its spot,
Yeah.
and tidy. And I think that's overrated. I'd rather I'd rather sit at the table with David Toohey any
Yeah.
day.
Would you ever play in the TV world? Is there anything you'd like that would grab your attention?
Yeah. It's definitely like something I'd love to experience, especially as a director, more than a writer. I'd love to just kind of come in and shoot episodes for stuff and learn from new people and learn new experiences. I mean, I think that's kind of one of the toughest things about directing films is that like you don't have that much set time. You know, if you're making a movie like every 3 years, you're on set for like 2 months. You know, and luckily I got to make a short film the year before, so I had a little bit of extra days. But it's like I would just love to get more and more time on set, because it's like anything else. The more experience, the more tricks,
Yeah.
the more you can learn, and the better you can get at your craft. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks, Ruben.
Thanks. I'm gonna say
All right,
goodbye.
talk soon.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.